It's been 16 years, and yet fans around the world are still theorizing about Avatar. And with the fresh and exciting launch of Avatar Studios, we're about to get even more to talk about for at least a decade or two. The beauty of theory is that we don't always have to find answers, but we can imagine potential events or even what-if scenarios. So hey, grab a drink and some snacks, and let's start discussing important questions like, is cabbage bending possible? Would Korra kick Aang's butt in a fight? Why is Mai so grumpy all the time? Alright, here's 20 Avatar mysteries that need explaining. When Rava merged with Wan to defeat Vaatu, they started what is known today as the Avatar cycle. After the harmonic convergence, Wan lived on as the first Avatar, but his legacy lived on after his death as he was reborn in the next Avatar. There have been mentions about Korra being the reincarnation of Aang, and Aang that of Roku, but what is actually reincarnated? We know for a fact that Rava can still manifest as her original self, as seen when Unalaq pulls the spirit out of Korra. But is it really each Avatar that's reincarnated, or only their memories living through Rava? Since Tenzin meets Aang in the Fog of Lost Souls, what might be transferred from one host to the other might not be a reincarnation of one, but simply Rava and her memories through previous avatars. While Iroh is known as the Dragon of the West, we all know that he didn't slay the last living dragon. But Iroh's meeting with the Sun Warriors, and by extension the two dragons Ren and Sha, remains shrouded in mystery. Since the Sun Warriors are believed to be extinct, how did Iroh stumble upon them? Did he meet them the same way Aang and Zuko did? And was he alone when he did? Since he was the general of the Fire Nation army back then, wouldn't he have traveled with a few soldiers? There's a lot of mystery still hanging in the air about Iroh and the Sun Warriors' encounter. One way to solve this would be if the newly created Avatar Studios produces an Iroh spin-off series, giving us a bit more about his life during the 100-Year War and how he became everyone's favorite uncle. Saying that Zuko's family is weird is quite an understatement. While there's tons of strange things happening under the Fire Nation Royal Palace's roof, there's also something peculiar happening when they walk the outside world. While the royal family has made a great deal of effort to be feared, and even more so since Fire Lord Ozai ascended to the throne and almost wiped out an entire nation, it seems that they go unnoticed when outside the palace's walls. When Zuko and Azula traveled to Amber Island for a vacation, none of the other kids seem to recognize the prince and the princess. Whether or not Ozai only allows his face to be known throughout the Fire Nation, it still feels a bit weird that the two most famous teenagers in the whole nation would not be recognized. There might be a secret rule we don't know about, or they just might be too scared to end up engulfed in blue flames, so they play it cool. One burning question that pretty much everyone has when it comes to Toph's storyline in Korra is who are her children's fathers, because it seems that there were two men in her life. One of them might just be Satoru, the son of the Fire Nation man Loban, who founded the Earth and Fire Refinery with Toph's father, Lao Beifong. Toph met Satoru during the comic book The Rift when Aang tried to revive the Yangchen's festival in Cranefish Town. There's a crystal clear attraction between the Earthbender and the Fire Nation boy, but since they had to battle the vengeful ancient spirit General Old Iron, things between them were left unexplored so far. But with the comic books still being published, we might get to know if the two eventually ended up together and who that second mystery man will be. For the only waterbender of the Southern Water Tribe, Katara was surprisingly skilled. From turning water into shards of ice, to healing wounds, and to one of the most impressive skills, bloodbending, Katara has shown off the amazing extent of her bending art more than once. But something technically doesn't make sense about how she uses her powers. When she uses water to blast through wood or metal using water whips, it seems unlikely that it would actually cut through. While the way she does it makes for a very cool effect animation-wise, water could only cut through metal at a very high pressure point for one, but also at a straight angle. The curvy way her water hits steel objects would basically only make them wet, or maybe dent them a little. Since Sokka put so much effort into the making of his space sword made out of meteorite ore, it's a bit of a mystery why he didn't go searching for it after it fell into the Wulong Forest. During the same event, he even sacrificed his trademark boomerang to save Fire Nation soldiers from falling from an airship down to their death below. While the boomerang is easily replaceable, although it holds symbolic value, the blade made out of meteorite ore is quite a rare item. The comics haven't addressed this issue yet, but an interesting future trilogy featuring Sokka and Toph using her seismic sense to find the space sword would be one cool quest to include for the comic books, or a future limited series. While waterbenders have access to greater energy when the moon is hanging high in the sky, and more so during solar eclipses, firebenders are the total opposite. Their main source of energy is a giant burning star floating right in the middle of our solar system. When the moon hides the sun, firebenders literally lose their ability to bend fire, so their powers are linked to a star. This is where the whole Sozin's Comet thing makes little sense. When the comet passes near Earth, firebenders become overpowered, as we've seen when they defeated the air nomads. But there's just one slight problem. A comet does not really emit any fire itself. Made of ice and dust, it would make more sense that it would power up waterbenders or earthbenders. The fire surrounding the comet is only the consequence of the comet entering the Earth's atmosphere, and not an initial part of the flying rock. The mysterious lion turtles might have been granted more screen time during Korra's Beginnings episode, but little is known about the fate of the last lion turtle. When Aang was trying to come up with a way to stop Fire Lord Ozai without having to end his life, he stumbled upon what is believed to be the very last lion turtle. These gigantic beasts that were once the protectors of mankind are rumored to have been brought to extinction by the humans themselves after they were allowed to keep various types of elemental bending abilities. The last time we saw one of those creatures, they gave Aang the power to energy bend and set sail to who knows where. Hopefully, future Avatar Studios productions will reveal a bit more about what happened to the mythical creature. One thing that's for sure about the smaller tribes within the Four Nations is that we don't know much about them. As I mentioned earlier in the entry about Iroh, the Sun Warriors are kept as a mysterious tribe believed to have been extinct. But other smaller tribes, like the Siwang Desert tribes or the Foggy Swamp tribe, do not have such a desire to stay hidden. The Foggy Swamp waterbenders have helped in the effort to bring down Ozai and his tyrannical rule, which could have brought them onto the stage of politics, but as somewhat confirmed in the Legend of Korra, it wasn't so much the case. This makes me wonder what would happen if the next Avatar was born into one of these isolated tribes. The Air Nomads, the Fire Nation, the Water Tribes, and the Earth Kingdom all have their own way to test if a child is truly the Avatar, but what about the others? This is something the Legend of Genji seems to explore with their sand-bending Avatar Genji, who was born in the desert and not discovered as the Avatar even in his late teens. Zuko and Mai might both be the worst and best match ever seen in an animated series. While the series ends with them together, they actually broke up in the comic book The Promise, as Mai finds another boyfriend named Kalo. But good news for the Zume ship, the two broke up, but there's still a chance that Mai actually might be Izumi's mother. After all, she does kinda look like her. The last time the two lovebirds really worked together was in the Smoke and Shadow trilogy, when Mai's little brother got kidnapped by the fake Kimurikage led by the psychotic Azula. While they eventually defeated Azula and her newly founded fire warriors, the crazy lightning bender is still at large, so chances are we'd see more of Zuko and Mai fighting side by side, and maybe more. One thing that is interesting but rather peculiar about animals in the Avatar universe is the fact that some of them can bend elements. Well, that and the fact that a lot of them are weird mixes between species, like the adorable turtle ducks and the weird-looking cat gator. Flying bison can airbend in order to float around the world. Dragons can obviously firebend, and badger moles can earthbend by using seismic sense, an incredible skill they taught Toph when she was little. But the question is, how did they get those powers? I could understand how the spirit dragon that taught Wan would firebend, since spirits have been known to hold some magical powers and can even shift to dark creatures if disturbed. But there's still a lot of mystery behind the fact that Avatar's fauna are born with natural elemental bending abilities. Are they the result of hybrid spirit animals and regular animals mating? A Discovery Channel-style show about these hybrid animals might be one good way to find out. Remember Bosco, that adorable dancing bear who was often accompanying Earth Kingdom's King Kwai? For a while, Kwai and Bosco set out on a journey across the world as the Earth Kingdom abandoned him, but the king eventually returned to reclaim his throne after the end of the 100 Years' War. We're not quite sure what happened to that huggable fluff of hair, but it seems that his fate might have been a grisly one, pun intended. It was implied in the Legend of Korra that Bosco was eventually served on a plate for the horrible Earth Queen Hao Ting. Now, one would think that the creators of the show would not be so cruel as to have Hao Ting eat Bosco, right? Wrong. In a DVD commentary, both of them actually confirmed that indeed, Bosco ended up as a meal for the Earth Queen. While there are 4 official nations that can be found in the Avatar map, it seems that this does not actually reflect the reality of the franchise's world. For instance, there are actually 2 kings in the Earth Kingdom, the crazy White Lotus member Bumi in Omashu, and King Kwai, or later on Queen Hao Ting, in the walled Ba Sing Se. The same can somehow apply to the Fire Nation, as on one side we have the Fire Lord ruling from the Fire Nation capital and the Sun Warriors having their very own singular culture. When it comes to the Water Tribes, we have the northern and southern ones, which are so far apart that they highly differ in cultural identity. Of course, there's also the Foggy Swamp Tribe and the Si Wong tribes, but for a time, there was also the so-called Fifth Nation introduced in The Rise of Kyoshi. This group, led by Tagaka in the novel, were a diverse group of pirates coming from various corners of the world. In some ways, this was an early, slightly illegal version of Republic City where nations mix. Unlike Zuko, Azula never got to have her redemption arc, but does she really deserve it? No, not really. Azula is a very interesting villain, and the franchise should definitely keep her that way. After trying to impress her fire daddy to compensate for her mother's fear towards her, Ty Lee and May's betrayal, and Zuko siding with Team Avatar, Azula completely lost her mind. The pressure to become a fitting tyrant like her father was so strong that she eventually ended up in an insane asylum, but was released by Zuko in The Search to help find her mother Ursa. While she surely was of help from time to time, she acted like a ticking time bomb for most of the journey, before disappearing into thin air. As explained earlier, her last appearance as of yet was in Smoke and Shadow, where she tries to control the throne from behind the scenes. We still don't know what happened to her between Avatar and Korra, but one theory I have is that her fire warriors orchestrated Mako and Bolin's parents' death. It's quite impressive that every single air nomad is born an airbender. This can be explained by the fact that these people are way more spiritually connected than any other nations, and in order to airbend properly, one needs to constantly nurture this connection to the spirit world. When Kyoshi's mother Jessa left the air nomads to live a life of crime with the Flying Opera Company, her airbending powers dwindled and she had to resort to using golden fans in order to increase and direct her powers. While a lot of these kids are heir to airbending powers, what happens if one of them is born a non-bender? I mean, if it happens in other nations, it could also happen to them, right? But more importantly, how would a non-bender air nomad travel without the ability to fly with an airbender staff? Would they be stuck on top of those high-perched temples forever? With harmonic convergence changing the game for the airbenders, it'd be interesting to see how a non-bender would grow up with the air nomads. Throughout its run, Avatar kept one huge secret from its viewers regarding the whereabouts of Zuko's mother Ursa. Only seen through flashbacks, her leaving her children left both of them scarred for life. She was Zuko's anchor while living in the madness that is the Fire Nation Royal Palace, and her negligence of Azula probably helped her fall into madness. Before stepping over the edge, Azula literally started hallucinating about her mother. It was revealed in the comics that she helped Ozai kill his own father Azulon with poison and left to return to her hometown where she rekindled with her first love, Ikem. To escape the Fire Lord's torment, she asked the Mother of Faces to change her face, as did Ikem years ago. The only problem is that she would lose some of her memories. The two eventually had a daughter, she got her memories back, and they went to live with Zuko. Remember when Katara saves Aang after he was lightning struck by Azula? At the time, she used healing spirit water she was saving for a good occasion. But that moment, which almost took Aang's life, was not the first life-threatening event the waterbender was faced with. In Book 3, during the Lake Laogai arc, Jet escaped the secret police after being brainwashed. But after his escape, he was attacked and, contrary to what he said to Katara before she left, he wasn't fine. While she tried to heal him using waterbending, she could have used the healing spirit water she was traveling with. After all, how could she have known Aang would need it while fighting against Azula? Or maybe she was just saving it for use on the Avatar only. If it was Sokka lying there instead of Jet, things might have turned out differently. While the sages, who are part of the White Lotus, were introduced throughout Avatar, they were not introduced at first as such. Members of the secret organization like Iroh, Bumi, Zhang, and Pakku were only revealed towards the end of the series as they set out to liberate Ba Sing Se from the clutches of the Fire Nation during the passing of Sozin's comet. Before getting involved with finding the Avatar whenever one passes away, the Order of the White Lotus's original goal was to gather scholars from the four nations to share knowledge amongst themselves. Little is known about the Order's origin story as they mostly work behind the scenes, but I'm curious to find out how Iroh became the Grand Lotus. Can we get that Iroh spin-off already? Now there's always an amount of hypocrisy when it comes to heroes with a no-kill rule.
Activate instant kill!
In a world where a devastating war has been waged for so long, there is bound to be a few casualties from the enemy's side. Characters without a name or a face are often seen as disposable and are sacrificed without anyone even mentioning them ever again. This is what happens with most of the masked Fire Nation soldiers that Aang ends up killing when he destroys airships or even boats full of them. Some are blown away, others are drowned, and yet Aang just goes on living his life without really caring about it. When it comes to Ozai, the Avatar can't seem to be able to end his life like he did with the others, although maybe in a more indirect way. The most hilarious gag of the entire franchise clearly goes to the poor cabbage merchant who keeps getting his cart destroyed by the gang. But what do we really know about him besides the fact that he sells cabbages? Pretty much nothing, really. Although we see him in the comic books as the owner of the Cabbage Delicacies Bistro, and later on the founder of Cabbage Corp and Korra, the poor guy was never even given an actual name. The identity and origin story behind the cabbage merchant is clearly one of the most pressing unsolved mysteries in the whole Avatar franchise. Right? Under our Book 1 video, user Ryan N wonders if firebenders would affect someone's nervous system by sending electrical pulses. Well, since waterbenders have bloodbending and airbenders can steal the air out of someone's lungs, it could be a possibility. Let me take your idea a bit further and suggest that maybe they could also use mind control by controlling electrical pulses in the brain.